What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 3. Final look.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over each position and break down a couple of my favorite players for this NFL DFS main slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Oh, and good news, guys. Make sure to stay tuned to the very end of this video because we removed the box that was popping up and blocking the lineup. So now you can see a full lineup using these picks that we made in this video if you stay to the very end. Okay, guys, NFL Week 3. Let's take a look at the quarterback position. I like Justin Herbert from the LA Chargers playing the Kansas City Chiefs, who have the 6th worst defense overall, and they give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Justin Herbert has averaged 19.1 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 4 rush attempts per game. Now, I like this pick because he's only going to be about 4% owned, projected at 21.2 fantasy points here in Week 3. He's $6,500 DraftKings salary and $1,000 more on FanDuel. And Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game, 54.5 points scored in this game, with the Chargers trailing by 6.5. So Justin Herbert's got everything going for him this week. A great matchup, a high-scoring game, and a passing game script, and low ownership. So I like Justin Herbert here versus the Kansas City Chiefs. I also like Matthew Stafford from the LA Rams playing the Tampa Bay Bucks, who have the 8th worst defense overall and they're middle of the pack defending opposing quarterbacks. Matthew Stafford has averaged 22.8 fantasy points per game on the season. He's getting an average of 3.5 rush attempts per game. Now, he's going to be about 9% owned, projected at 20.4 fantasy points here in Week 3. He's $6,400 DraftKings salary and $1,200 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 56 points scored in this game, with the Rams trailing by 1.5. So you get a decent matchup here, a super high-scoring game, and a close, competitive game. And Matthew Stafford has Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, so he's set to go off in this game. So I like Matthew Stafford here versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. Okay, let's take a look at the running back position. I like Austin Eckler from the LA Chargers playing the Kansas City Chiefs, who have the 6th worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Austin Eckler has averaged 17.1 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 12 rush attempts and 4.5 pass targets per game. He got 9 pass targets last game, and he's only going to be about 4% owned, projected at 18.3 fantasy points here in Week 3. He's $7,200 DraftKings salary and $200 less on FanDuel. So I like that FanDuel price. So we know Vegas thinks there's going to be 54.5 points scored in this game, with the Chargers trailing by 6.5. So we covered this already. It's a great matchup, high-scoring game. Now, he's a running back, but he's involved in the passing game. So even if it turns into a passing game script, Austin Eckler can still benefit here. So I like Austin Eckler here versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, everyone, it's time to announce the winner of our $25 weekly PayPal giveaway. And the winner is Nathan Deaton. Nathan Deaton, congratulations. You are the winner of this week's $25 PayPal giveaway. Please reply to our comment to collect your prize.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
I also like Mike Davis from the Atlanta Falcons playing the New York Giants, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Mike Davis, he averaged 11.8 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 12 rush attempts per game and 6.5 pass targets per game. So averaging 18.5 touches, that's good volume, and I like those pass targets. He's going to be about 13% owned. He's on the field for 69% of the snaps. He's projected at 13.9 fantasy points here in week 3. And I like this pick because you're going to save some salary with this play. He's only $5,100 DraftKings salary, and he's $600 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 47.5 points scored in this game, with the Atlanta Falcons trailing by 3. So you got a great matchup and a close competitive game. So I like Mike Davis here versus the New York Giants. And on the other side of the ball, I like Saquon Barkley from the New York Giants playing the Atlanta Falcons, who have the 2nd worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing running backs. Now, Saquon Barkley, he's been limited in his first couple of weeks, but I think he's getting his legs under him. I think his health has been improving. Although he was limited in practice on Friday, I think it's cautionary. I think he's going to get a pretty big workload here in week 3, but there is a little bit of risk here because you want to see him get close to 20 touches, where he's only averaging 11.5 rush attempts per game and 3 pass targets per game, but I think those numbers are going to go up. Now, he's going to be about 11% owned, projected at 15.2 fantasy points here in week 3, but I like this pick because Saquon Barkley is super cheap, only $6,500 DraftKings salary and $500 less on FanDuel. So that price is just way too low on a guy that's got 20 plus fantasy point upside. Even if he's limited to 15 to 20 rush attempts or touches, he could still get there. I think he's going to have a breakout game here in week 3. So I like Saquon Barkley here versus the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. I like Calvin Ridley from the Atlanta Falcons playing the New York Giants, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing wide receivers. Calvin Ridley has averaged 14.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 9 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 84% of the snaps, and he's going to be about 11% owned, projected at 18 fantasy points here in week 3. He's $7,000 DraftKings salary and $1,100 more on FanDuel. So we know Vegas thinks there's going to be 47.5 points scored in this game, with the Falcons trailing by 3. Now I like this pick because Russell Gage is out, so that's going to mean more targets for Calvin Ridley. So I like Calvin Ridley here versus the New York Giants.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL, MLB is still going, NBA is right around the corner. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
I also like Julio Jones from the Tennessee Titans playing the Indianapolis Colts, who have the 9th worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Julio Jones has averaged 13.9 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 76% of the snaps, and he's only going to be about 3% owned. So I think that ownership is way too low. He's projected at 15.1 fantasy points here in week 3. He's $6,500 DraftKings salary, 200 more on FanDuel, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 48 points scored in this game, with the Tennessee Titans favored by 5.5. So you got a great matchup here. This guy's an elite wide receiver, got 8 pass targets last week, scored 22 fantasy points. So I think he's going to get 15 to 20 plus fantasy points in this one at low ownership. So I like Julio Jones here versus the Indianapolis Colts. Now, if you want to save even more salary with your wide receiver, take a look at Michael Pittman Jr. from the Indianapolis Colts playing the Tennessee Titans, who have the 2nd worst defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Michael Pittman Jr. has averaged 14.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 8 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 94% of the snaps, and I was surprised by this. He's only going to be about 3% owned, so super low ownership, projected at 12.5 fantasy points here in week 3, and he's $5,500 DraftKings salary and 100 more on FanDuel. So we know Vegas thinks there's going to be 48 points scored in this game, with the Colts trailing by 5.5. So you got a great matchup. You got a passing game script and a target monster in Michael Pittman Jr. at low ownership. And the guy's on the field for 94% of the snaps. I just love this play this week. So I like Michael Pittman Jr. here versus the Tennessee Titans. Okay, moving on to the tight end position. I like TJ Hockenson from the Detroit Lions playing the Baltimore Ravens, who have the absolute worst defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. TJ Hockenson has averaged 23.2 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 9.5 targets per game. He's on the field for 88% of the snaps. He's going to be about 11% owned, projected at 14.2 fantasy points here in week 3. He's $5,200 DraftKings salary and $1,100 more on FanDuel. So Vegas thinks there's going to be 50 points scored in this game, with the Lions trailing by 8. So there's a lot to love about TJ Hockenson this week. Best possible matchup on paper, a passing game script, a high scoring game, and 11% ownership for this smash spot is not really all that bad. He's getting a ton of targets. He's been super productive. So I like TJ Hockenson here versus the Baltimore Ravens. Now I also like Kyle Pitts. I know I've picked a lot of players from this game, and you could stack this game, but I would play 1 or 2 players max because it's not going to be a super high scoring game. But I like Kyle Pitts from the Atlanta Falcons playing the New York Giants, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they give up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Kyle Pitts has averaged 9.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 74% of the snaps. He's going to be about 5% owned, projected at 12.5 fantasy points here in week 3. He's $4,900 DraftKings salary and $1,300 more on FanDuel. So this is a great matchup, and I think Kyle Pitts has his breakout game here in week 3. So I like Kyle Pitts here versus the New York Giants. And if you want to save some salary at the tight end position, take a look at Jared Cook from the LA Chargers playing the Kansas City Chiefs, who have the 6th worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing tight ends. Jared Cook has averaged 8.2 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 6.5 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 4% owned, projected at 9.4 fantasy points here in week 3. But I like this pick because he's only $3,900 DraftKings salary. He's $1,400 more on FanDuel. And we know Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. 54.5 points scored in this game, with the Chargers trailing by 6.5. So the matchup's pretty good here, and this should be a passing game script as the Chargers should be playing from behind. So I like Jared Cook here versus the Kansas City Chiefs.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.